Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack a massive online trend, the connection between ASMR and autism. Look, if you spend any time scrolling social media, the algorithm has probably served you videos casually claiming ASMR is some kind of magic fix for autistic individuals. Or, you've stumbled across tracks labeled as sensory-friendly. But the reality of this connection, it requires a lot more care and nuance than a catchy hashtag can actually provide.
We've got to start with a crucial boundary, one that honestly gets lost in the noise of the internet all the time. Autism is a neurodevelopmental difference. It is absolutely not a problem to be fixed or cured by an audio track, so ASMR is not a clinical treatment for autism. However, the sound environments around us can deeply affect comfort, focus, sleep, and emotional regulation. And that is exactly where ASMR-style audio can become a literally game-changing daily support for some people, as long as it's used correctly.
So, here's our agenda for today. First, we'll look at the ASMR and autism connection. Then, autistic sensory processing explained. Third, what research actually says. Fourth, 5 rules for safe sound. And finally, seeking professional support. All right, Section 1, the ASMR-autism connection, overlap and boundaries. Now, here is a truly fascinating dichotomy. Autistic people are not just one homogeneous sensory group. One person might absolutely love the sound of whispering, right? They find it deeply regulating and calming. But another person might find that exact same whisper completely unbearable, painful, or just way too overwhelming. Both of these extremely different reactions are completely real, completely valid, and really central to understanding why we just cannot paint this topic with a broad brush.
Moving on to Section 2. Autistic sensory processing explained, how the brain receives and filters input.
You see, autistic sensory processing often involves very real differences in how the brain handles auditory input. For many folks, a standard auditory environment can feel incredibly chaotic. Everyday noises that most people just kind of subconsciously filter out, they might feel sharper or overwhelmingly layered. Think about the hum of a refrigerator or the buzz of a fluorescent light. It might be nearly impossible to ignore. And sudden sounds can trigger genuine anxiety or actual physical discomfort. For these listeners, the world can quite literally feel too loud and way too unpredictable.
So here is the absolute crucial point. Experiencing the world as too loud doesn't mean a person dislikes all sound. It simply means that control matters. This is exactly why you frequently see autistic individuals actively managing their environments using things like headphones, earplugs, or seeking out quiet spaces. It's all about the listener having absolute agency over what they're hearing.
Let's check out Section 3, what research actually says, studies on autism and auditory environments.
When we map out the scientific landscape, a pretty fascinating picture emerges. Back in 2017, Robertson's study confirmed that sensory processing differences are central to autistic experiences. Then, Williams in 2021 showed us that strong ASMR experiences are linked to heightened sensory sensitivity, especially internal bodily awareness. Fast forward to Green's 2025 data, which proves autistic individuals are already actively managing their environments with audio tools. But look at the 2024 Neuroscience Review. It explicitly notes that while both autism and ASMR involved heightened sensory sensitivity, there is absolutely no evidence proving a direct clinical association. They overlap in sensory traits, sure, but they are not the same thing.
Because there's no direct clinical link, framing our curiosity with the question, does ASMR work for autism, is fundamentally flawed. It treats ASMR like a medication or a cure-all, and as we've established, it's definitely not.
What we really need here is a complete paradigm shift. Instead of looking for some universal fix, we should be asking, what kinds of sound are supportive for this person in this exact moment, under their control? Framing it this way honors the individual's unique sensory profile and puts them right in the driver's seat.
For example, for some autistic listeners, helpful sounds might include a loop of rain, the turning of a page, slow brushing, or low brown noise. Notice the pattern there? They prioritize steadiness and predictability. On the flip side, unhelpful sounds are often unpredictable, chaotic, wet, like intense mouth sounds, socially intrusive or emotionally loaded. The exact same sound that soothes one person might deeply distress another. Okay, Section 4. 5 rules for safe sound, a practical toolkit for sensory support.
The source material gives us these 5 strict parameters for keeping sound supports respectful, safe, and effective. Consent, volume, predictability, context, and support. Whether you're a caregiver, a partner, or just someone looking to optimize your own sensory environment, these 5 steps are your gold standard.
Rule number 1 is consent, and this is the absolute foundation. You cannot force a sound on someone, especially an autistic child or teenager, just because a viral post claims it's universally calming. You must offer options, let the person preview the sounds, and most importantly, allow them to reject a sound entirely without demanding an explanation. If it doesn't feel right to them, turn it off immediately, no questions asked.
Rule 2 is volume. Listen, if a sound is meant to regulate the nervous system, louder is definitely not better. Keeping the volume low ensures the listener maintains control and avoids accidental sensory overload. It should be a gentle background support, not an aggressive wall of noise that demands all their attention. We already get enough of that out in the real world.
Rule 3 is predictability, and honestly, this one is vital. Sudden, intense shifts in audio can instantly undo any calming effects and trigger a stress response instead. A highly produced ASMR roleplay with fast, unpredictable whispers, loudly dropping props, or sudden jumps in intensity, that can be a sensory minefield. For actual regulation, a simple, uninterrupted loop of rain or a steady, predictable fan noise is often so much more useful and a lot safer.
Rule 4 shows us that context dictates success. Sound can be a fantastic tool during tricky daily transitions. For instance, creating a practical, calm bedtime sequence is highly effective. Imagine lowering the lights, stripping away daily demands, and playing a steady, low-volume track of brown noise or soft fabric sounds to signal to the brain that it's time to wind down. It's a brilliant way to ease into sleep. However, sound should generally be set aside entirely during an active meltdown. In those moments, adding more sensory input can actually be harmful. The absolute priority has to be reducing demands and ensuring physical safety.
Finally, Section 5. Seeking professional support. When to look beyond ASMR.
Rule 5 is knowing when to get support, and we need to be very clear about pediatric red flags. If a child's auditory sensitivity is causing them physical pain, inducing panic attacks, leading to severe school avoidance, or creating chronic sleep disruption, guys, this is not a problem that a YouTube ASMR track can fix. If sound sensitivity is causing daily impairment, it requires serious professional attention.
These kinds of significant distresses are red flags that are absolutely worth discussing with qualified healthcare professionals. An occupational therapist can help build tailored sensory diets, while an audiologist, psychologist, or pediatrician can provide specialized clinical support and help rule out any other underlying issues. ASMR is a great tool, but it never, ever replaces medical care.
Ultimately, ASMR can be an incredibly useful, complementary part of a sensory toolkit, provided the listener retains total autonomy. The most respectful approach is keeping sound gentle, predictable, optional, and incredibly easy to stop.
Which brings us to this point. True regulation comes from a deep sense of internal safety and agency, not from blindly following online trends. If the algorithm pushes a popular trigger that makes you tense up, then it's the wrong trigger for you. Period. Control is literally everything.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want you to take a second and reflect on your own sensory boundaries. Think about your daily environment. What sounds legitimately make your body feel safe and grounded, and which sounds are an absolute instant no? By understanding and respecting those boundaries, you can start taking real, proactive control of your auditory environment today. So, what's playing in your